Today, because it's Wednesday, and Wednesday is ruled by Hod. Its planet is Mercury, and often it's taken as air as the component in the bottom four spheres of the elements. So today is the day to talk about incense. And my work with the tree, the incense is probably the most important thing I do because it's a place I start. The incense seems to me to carry the energy of the sphere. And so when I'm working on the tree, the first thing I do after I've got all my preparations laid is I reach into the incense, feeling for that energy, almost treating it like a door through which on the other side I will find Hod. So through that, and Hod's incense is mace and lavender. I reach into that energy of the sphere by finding the incense and bringing up that dryness, that intellectual precision, that place where we can count everything. And in reaching to that and knowing that's what I'm looking for when I find it, I grab it and I tie it in to each candle in the sphere. I think it's fascinating to look at what incenses go with the sphere. So I'm going to talk a little bit about planets other than Hod, but always about incense, because Hod and Mercury is an air sign that rules that power. One of the ways that I've always known that you've got a sphere right is when you're pouring the incense on and all of a sudden whatever your preference was before, the incense smells so right. It's almost not a smell anymore. It's almost as if you need those scents to breathe. And my belief is that we bring the sphere here so strongly that the beings who live in the sphere need that incense in order to breathe, because they don't breathe oxygen, they breathe Hod. So reach into that sphere, fill your room, pour it on more deeply. And that's really lovely when you're working Hod. A little dry, mace and lavender. Very powerful when you're working in Yesod, because sandalwood is such a popular incense. And when you're working in Jupiter, I prefer nutmeg and clove. And I've had a lot of people who couldn't handle clove. And so sometimes for an altar, when I couldn't burn incense, although I had burned it already once to consecrate the tools I was using, I would set whole nutmegs and cloves on the altar at Khan, because the goal at that time had been to make it grow bigger. And Jupiter is certainly the planet for that. So whether or not you're burning the incense, the presence of the incense really carries that energy. The most disturbing incense there is for Gebura, which is Mars, and some people would compare it with hell. Its incense is sulfur and black pepper, and no rational person thinks that smells good. However, I will promise you, when Mars is going strong, you will still be saying, oh, more incense. I want to strengthen this energy. I want to dive into this vibe. There's a sense or an incense for every one of the spheres. The ones I haven't managed to mention are cinnamon for Tiferet, which is the center. Some people like to use rose petals there, but more traditionally, rose petals and thyme are used for nutsack, because Venus should always have roses. Oddly enough, I would say that the two spheres that are most known for their incense are the ones that have frankincense and myrrh. Because if you've ever heard the story of the three wise men, or the song, there are three wise men carrying three gifts, and the white one carries frankincense, because that's Hokmah, and the black king carries myrrh, because that's Binah, and the third one, the yellow one, carries gold, which is one of the gifts of Tiferet, and the color that it represents. So each of these incenses have become so embodied that as a culture, we think of myrrh as an embalming fluid and as being evocative of the dead. And it rules the sphere for Binah, which is the place of mourning, because Binah is who condemns us all to death by giving birth. Frankincense and myrrh are critical elements in many sacred incenses, because those are the two spheres above the abyss. Whatever sphere you're working with, you should embrace the scent. And of course, in the sense of being a scientist full of controlled experiments and curiosity, explore. Cunningham has lists of herbs that work best and belong to different spheres. The ones I've shared with you are the ones that the priest and I worked together and discovered. Perhaps you'll find one that works better for you. For more information, find my website, tarotjane.com, or find me on Facebook, Tarot Jane, or Traveling the Tree with Jane Pierce.